There is a rather famous quote from a 1994 film called Forrest Gump. And that quote is, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." And I never understood that quote. It never made sense to me, because if you look at a box of chocolates, you know what you're going to get, because it's on the bloody box. It tells you what's inside the box of chocolates. But then I've started thinking about other contexts in which this quote could be used. And I just think it's so perfect for the A-League women if you compare it to what's inside a box of chocolates and that quote. Because each week we never know what we're going to get from this wonderful and glorious league that we all love. Sometimes the teams that are supposed to win will lose, unless you're Melbourne City, in which case you may never lose another game of football. Sometimes the teams that are supposed to lose will win, unless you're the Western Sydney Wanderers, who once again fail to do anything in a Sydney derby. Sometimes even what's on the box is incorrect, because it will change, such as Sam Kerr coming back into the Matildas setup to continue her rehabilitation during this upcoming international window. And then there's just times when it's exactly like what's on the box. It tells you exactly what you're going to get, where idiots will just continue to be idiots. On this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Round Ball Australia podcast network, my name is Poletti and Burke. It sometimes you just don't know what you're going to get in the dub, do you?
Honestly, I think it's most times. Most times you don't know what you're gonna get. The It must be such a difficult league to bet on. I'm not a gambling kind of gal, but it must be so difficult.
I mean, as someone who does does occasionally partake in gambling, I stay away from both the A-League men and the A-League women, just because you never know what you're going to get
No.
on a week-to-week basis. I mean, who could have predicted that Melbourne Victory and Adelaide United was going to end 5-3 in the A-League men on Saturday night? Not me.
No,
No,
not me.
no. A more predictable scoreline, though, might have been what happened in the A-League women, which was Melbourne Victory 2, Adelaide United 1. That's a reasonable scoreline for a game of
That
football, isn't
is.
it, Burke?
That is very much a normal score.
Yeah. So we'll be jumping straight into that game because there is a lot to discuss. And I think it's where both of us would have gone with our big storyline this week anyway.
Yep.
So it was the Pride Cup game, part of a doubleheader, as we all know. Nicky Flannery opened the scoring in the 69th minute. Dylan Holmes equalised with an 86-minute penalty. And just quickly, how good is it to see Dylan Holmes back on the pitch,
So
bro?
good. So good.
And then Nicky Flannery in the 91st minute, who was seemingly the only person on the victory team wearing a rainbow armband, which was surprisingly absent from Kayla Morrison's arm. Got the winning goal in the 91st minute. On the field, this essentially seals up the top two race, doesn't it, Burke?
Yes, it does. The one thing about this game on the pitch that was crazy to me was how Adelaide won the penalty, because it was a free kick that was delivered in, and then Emily Gilnick just put her arm in front of her head. What? Why did she do that? I'm still so confused by it. Like, does she know? I think she does know that she can hit the ball with her head. Um, yeah, so that bit was really crazy to me. I sat there in disbelief for a good few minutes after the penalty was scored. Why did she do that?
Your guess is probably as good as mine. So this result basically locks Adelaide into third place with 2 games to go. They can't drop below Western United in fourth, who are on 32 points. It would take some sort of divine intervention for them to catch Melbourne City. Adelaide would have to win out, and Melbourne City would have to lose all 3 of their remaining games. A draw would work in favour of even just a draw, because of goal difference, would work in favour of Melbourne victory. And Melbourne City, with their 2-game wins, like essentially the top three is decided because Melbourne victory is still 5 points back of Melbourne City. Yes, they have that game in hand, but 5 points back, still 2 points even if they win that. It's so tough. So right now we're looking at Melbourne City 1, Melbourne victory 2, Adelaide United 3, and then anyone's guess after that. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Off the field, this was probably one of the worst days of football I've ever experienced in a long time. So, for context, I was not paying complete attention to what was going on in Melbourne until probably about 8:30 p.m. Because I was calling 2 NPL women's games that day. So my day started at 3 p.m. I then had to make a dash to another ground for a 6:30 p.m. kickoff, and I was sort of piecing together little bits of information that I'd heard, which started that probably just after 5 p.m. that the North Terrace were boycotting the game, which was later revealed that certain members within the North Terrace of the leadership group were made the decision to go watch an NPL men's game in Shepparton, featuring the Melbourne Victory Academy side, rather than stay in Melbourne proper to watch the Pride Cup games. I don't think it was completely confirmed what it was, but you can read between the lines and find out why they boycotted the game, particularly when they decided to turn up with a banner in Shepparton which read "No politics in sport." You've then got the fact that the A-League women's side wore rainbow names and numbers, but the men's side didn't. Now, per Joey Lynch after the men's game, Victory officials have said their plans for Pride Round centred on education sessions and helping players and staff further their understanding. Initial kit plans were captain armbands only. A-League women's side made extra requests for rainbow names and numbers, and the club took steps to meet that request. You then look at the A-League women game as well. I've been in touch with several fans who were at the game who say that they were approached by venue security, and it was suggested that they move during the A-League women game. These fans were wearing Melbourne Victory Pride merch because security were concerned about what would happen if the North Terrace turned up during the A-League women game. Supposed fellow Victory fans, mind you. You've then... so I'll stop there for now, Burke. How concerning is that you've got Melbourne Victory fans turning up to a doubleheader to watch a game, and security is heavily suggesting that they move because they believe their safety is at risk, because they're wearing club-branded merchandise that just so happens to be in rainbow colours?
The whole thing was just an absolute shambles. I don't know, I still don't understand why they let the men's team not wear rainbow numbers. Adelaide men's were wearing them, Adelaide women's were wearing them, Victory women's were wearing them. Some of the Victory women's players actually had some rainbow ribbons like in their hair and stuff, which I thought was very cute. Um, but yeah, every other thing for this was just an absolute shambles, just an absolute mess, an absolute nightmare. They did play some footage pre-game and maybe at halftime as well. I can't remember. I did leave early because I needed to get home. About the work that they'd done with a futsal team, LGBTQ futsal team, which was really cool to see. But yeah, just to give some context as well to you, if you're not from Victoria, Shepparton is over 2 hours away by car from Amy Park. So, yeah, I don't know if if the APL deliberately had the scheduling changed so the game was there as a means of deterring people from going there instead of going to the Pride game. But it clearly, if that was the case, it clearly did not work. Yeah, this whole thing stinks. It just sucks.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, from all accounts, the Northern Terrace was still rocking throughout the game.
Yeah.
Arthur Dillers said post game that he didn't notice the absences when he was asked in the post game press conference. But it's the whole situation just absolutely stunk from top to bottom. Everything that I heard coming out throughout the day, and when I had finally finished my two games and I pieced together what had happened and found out the full extent of everything I'd missed while I was working. I'm not gonna lie, I sat in my car and I cried. I thought we were past this. I thought we were better than all of this, and clearly that hasn't been the case. And I think some of what I heard afterwards as well kind of took that extra bit of an impact on me. So I was also told that a Melbourne Victory women's player was dead named twice on the scoreboard prior to the game on the scoreboard. The lineup that gets done on the scoreboard for every single game is unacceptable at the best of times, but during Pride rounds as well, it's extra get in the bin. Like, this is a player who, throughout all club communication and material, is named properly. But when it actually counted the most, it wasn't. The player was dead named. I did reach out to request comment for Melbourne Victory about that, as well as the fan incident with security. Melbourne Victory, as of the time of recording, have not responded. So if we do get a response, we will post it on Dubcast and Roundball Australia socials. But as of now, there has been no response. There was an email sent to a member who reached out to a club, and that email was responded to by Victory CEO Carolyn Carnegie. I'll read select parts of that email because it is quite a lengthy read. As you may know, we have a vision here at the club to lead, unite us to be lead, unite, connect, and inspire through football. And this is one of the reasons that drove us to be one of only two clubs that hold a Pride Cup in the first place. As per last season, where the captain's armband was the Pride apparel of choice, we made a decision at the outset of this season to focus on authentic community engagement, meaningful education, and bringing our staff, players, and members on a journey while retaining the armband and then using Pride Cup related designs and logos around the stadia. So I'm going to stop there first. This is a club that in the 2 seasons prior to this had jerseys. You can't tell me that the armband was the Pride apparel of choice last season when you had a jersey ready to go. Now, why you had a jersey ready to go is entirely up for debate. Some people will say that there was miscommunication between Adelaide and Melbourne Victory. Other people will tell you that those jerseys had been sitting on the shelf for a year because of a miscommunication with suppliers. Regardless, for the last 2 seasons, Melbourne Victory have had some form of Pride jersey available at their Pride Cup games. So I don't buy that at all. Our women, after one of our internal A-League Women's standalone consultation sessions, specifically requested to wear the Pride names and numbers, as it is very close to their heart. As part of inclusivity, we think it's important to bring people on the journey and respect their wishes. At no time did our plans have anything to do with our A-League men's squad asking not to wear Pride names and numbers, albeit we do have religious beliefs we also need to respect. So this was not a case of the men's side not wanting to do it. This was a case of the women's side wanting to do it, if you believe the story that is coming out of the club and being told, Burke. Regardless, it's every single bit of information that had kept on coming out. It's just like, to use a Simpsons quote, no, dig up, stupid. They keep digging down further into the hole.
Yeah. I I hate it. I hate every part of it. I think it's look, they can say that they were committed to education as much as they like, but there's no proof of that outside of the videos that they played about that futsal club that they hosted and partnered with. There was like no promotion for the game, and there was there was promotion for it as the original rivalry, which in the women's game they don't really care about it being the original rivalry. And there was like just the tiniest, I remember seeing the ads on TV, there was the tiniest little logo saying it was the Pride Cup, but that was it. That was all.
Yeah, it was interesting. Joining us is Robbie Thomson. Robbie, you were there in Melbourne preparing for your own A League men's game, which you had to call. Just before we sort of wrap up this Melbourne victory chat, what sort of vibe were you getting around as you were preparing for your game? Because I imagine you would have seen people, talking, maybe heard them. I imagine there might have been some panicked faces running around as more information was coming out from Victory staffers. So what was your general vibe down there in Melbourne?
Well, first of all, hello. Nice to be here. The vibe was very low key. I didn't know what was going on or what was being planned for in terms of the supporters for what was to come for essentially what was the men's game. I arrived at the stadium probably 15 minutes before kickoff of the women's game, and there were very few people there. As I was arriving at the ground, there was obviously something else on somewhere in that precinct because there were thousands of AFL fans and everyone milling around. There was loads of traffic, so I actually saw Adelaide staff walking to Amy Park. So I thought when I got there were very few people inside the ground ahead of the women's game. I thought that was perhaps due to congestion in the area in the traffic. And then turned out, slowly but surely, as we sort of when you're preparing for a broadcast, Georgia was upstairs. I went up and saw Georgia. She was commentating. She was already commentating when I went up there, so we couldn't really install ourselves where we commentate normally. So we found another place in the stadium to talk about what was going to happen in the game. Then we did meet with a Melbourne Victory representative who told us that they weren't expecting a normal sized crowd for this event because, and I assume this is what you're talking about, I've only just joined in, the fact that it was being played under the Pride banner and for the Pride Cup. And that was really disappointing. I still find it hard to really think that was the main reason why there weren't that many people there. Just because, I mean, if you're talking about a bunch of people in the Northern Terrace or the North Stand, should I say, I don't want to label them with names or groups that they don't belong to or whatever. I mean, how many people are you talking about? 60 dicks that are saying we don't want to be part of this? 100? 150? Maybe if, like when we saw with the bin incident, a small group can lead a bigger group. That's the history of violence in football, essentially, and bigotry in general around the world, historically. So maybe that brought with it a few more people that thought, oh, maybe we shouldn't go because theirs not going and he says we shouldn't go. I don't know. I still don't think that seems to justify why there were only 10,000 people there around the rest of the stadium as well, for what was a big game for the men and for the women. The Adelaide fans were great. They had a big United banner behind them. There were several hundred of them there for the women as well as for the men. So hats off to them and kudos. And there was a great roar when Nikki Flannery scored the 2 goals. So, the crowd that was there were behind them. But yeah, I yeah, I don't know really what more to add in terms of vibe. When the men's game kicked off, the match was a small crowd, but they were still vocal. It was still noisy. The game was very entertaining. I think that painted over perhaps, what could have been a less vibrant occasion. But yeah, again, we're there focused on the men's game when we get there to commentate that for 10 Bold. So we're not fully focused on the women's game beforehand like a supporter would be. But yeah, there were certainly things that came out of that game, aside from what happened on the football pitch in the two games, that were very disappointing.
Yeah, indeed. Look, to wrap this chat up, just because I think we've spent enough time on it already. Just be better people. That's all I want across the board. Whether you're working for the club, whether you're a player, whether you're a fan, just be better. And I think that's all we can ask for. But the other big storyline this week, as we properly welcome in Robbie Thomson. If you don't know Robbie Thomson, if you're not familiar with his work, he is one of the A-League's commentators for Paramount Australia, and he also commentates the Matildas games. We'll be back behind the microphone on Friday and Monday for a 2-match series against South Korea. Robbie, welcome to the Tubcast.
Thank you very much. Officially, I'm here now. Thank you.
If you cannot hear him on A-League off air, that show does not exist. You no need to like it, no need to subscribe to it.
Exactly.
It's
a side project.
It is. So the last time the Matildas and South Korea faced off was at the 2022 Women's Asian Cup, the quarterfinal, 1-0 till South Korea. We've talked about it in the last couple of weeks, Burke, but we tried not to, but context is important. But there's been a couple of big changes to the roster within this camp. Katrina Gorry is out as she picked up an ankle injury in her game against West Ham, or in a game for West Ham on the weekend, I should say, and has been replaced by Melbourne City's Leah Davidson. But Robbie, I'll come to you first on this. Perhaps the biggest news that dropped on Tuesday morning was that Sam Kerr is continuing her rehabilitation here in Australia with the Matildas.
Great. I think that's great. I think it's important for her in her road back to recovery. She's such an important element in that team and has been. We saw her absence was felt during the Women's World Cup, but also her presence, I think, and the way she held herself despite the fact that she couldn't play was outstanding. The fact that she did play when probably she shouldn't have at the end of the tournament as well, and I wonder what could have been had she been fully fit. Aside from everything that went on, I mean, she was found not guilty. She's here to play. We know that there was and there will be and there will continue to be lots of controversy about that. Do we want to go into that? I think, do you want opinions? Mine doesn't really count for anything. I think it's great that she's back. I think the whole thing was a storm in a teacup. I think I've said worse things when I've been drunk, occasionally to the police. So look, I think it's just crazy. What a whole circus for nothing. And so I understand she's a role model. She has, she said herself that she would rather this event had not happened. I think we all agree that it was a stupid thing to say. But, it happens. We move on. Everyone's trying to put this behind them, including FA and the Matildas and Sam. Let's help her do that. She's also coming back from a very serious injury. So if this can be part of that, to get her back to playing her best, good. Can only be a positive thing. I'm a staunch supporter of Sam Kerr. I think she's awesome, and I think we need her on the team. So get her back. Can I just add for context against Korea Republic as well, or are we going to talk about that now the game's coming up as well?
I was just going to throw to Burke quickly here.
Okay, sorry.
So Burke, as part of Kerr's return to play program, she's joined the Matildas training camp for the March-April FIFA Women's International window. Granted leave by Chelsea FC, she will continue her rehabilitation under the supervision of the Matildas performance support team, per the press release. This arrangement, developed in close collaboration between the FA and Chelsea, reflects a shared commitment to providing the best environment for Kerr's recovery and reintegration into the national team. While she may participate in selected training activities, she has not yet been cleared for competitive football, with her focus remaining on health, progression and long-term readiness. So I'm sure there might have been a few extra people, Burke, as we record on Tuesday, that would have turned up to the Matildas fan session at Leichhardt Oval hoping to get a glimpse of Kerr on kicking a ball around or something like that. But I think perhaps the most interesting part of what's gone on is that the FA have not ruled out that she will be eligible for the captaincy when she's ready to make a return as part of this release. Look, to be fair, she was given the captaincy by Ante Milicic, which was kept on by Tony Gustafsson. Obviously, there's still no permanent coach in place, so maybe the new coach might choose to go somewhere else, and this is all, as Robbie said, a storm in a teacup. But she's still eligible for leadership positions, and she might participate in training, which could only be a good thing, Burke.
Yeah, mostly the first thing I thought of really when this was announced on Tuesday was that I was shocked that Chelsea agreed to this. I couldn't believe that they thought, yeah, we'll send her on a flight across the world and a flight back like that. I'm really glad. I'm really glad they signed off on it. I think it's really great. I have missed seeing Sam just out with the team, even if it's not football related. And I think the team have missed her too, because she is such a talisman. And I cannot wait to possibly get blasted by the 3 comments that we receive for being either too positive or too negative about this. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really good. I'm just like everyone else, eagerly awaiting her return. More so for Australia than for Chelsea, but that's just me. I'm sure there are plenty of people waiting for her to return for Chelsea. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's going to be a much more positive thing for us to see her on the bench now, as opposed to the last time we sort of saw her on the bench for Australia, at least, because it was all very stressful at that point. But now it kind of feels like, I think I said it last episode about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm seeing it again, and it is not a train this time. Still not a train.
Yes, no, positive light, positive vibes indeed. But as we mentioned, it is a 2-game series against South Korea, or the Korea Republic, as they're known by FIFA and the AFC, and what Robbie will have to say behind the microphone on Friday night and Monday night. So 8 p.m. Friday night, that game will be on free-to-air and Paramount Plus. Monday, 7:30 p.m. in Newcastle, that game is on Paramount Plus only. Robbie, I've talked to you in the past about the depth of research that you go into for this. What little tidbits and nuggets have you come up with in your research here as you prepare for these 2 games?
Oh, that's a secret, Poletti. No, well, I have been very busy. My research is starting now, so I've just been going through the very preliminaries of the Korean team earlier today, in between giving my daughter a driving lesson and cooking the dinner for my partner, who's bringing home a friend tonight to chat and have a little dinner party with us. So I have been quite busy. I will get into that over the next few days. I still have a few days up my sleeve. But yeah, it will be searching as much as I can. I see there are a few new faces in the Korea Republic lineup. They've changed coach since the last time I commentated them as well. I commentated them at the Women's World Cup and, of course, in the Asian Cup, which is where I was going to add that little bit of context. We may have lost 1-0 to that great goal from Ji So-yoon, but we should have had 3 penalties. We had so many chances. All that, I mean, we love a storm in a teacup and an overreaction. And everyone was pulling their hair out of that. And, results are important, but we would have won that game 95 times out of 100 if it was to be replayed. Korea Republic have not followed the rest of their country's expansion into globalization. I think there are no K-pop or K-drama or K-cinema just yet. The women, they are getting there, but they're still ranked below us. They still don't have the experience we have. Yes, they have some excellent players that are starting to play all over the world now. I've seen they have players in Italy, in Germany, in England. So look, they are going to be a tough challenge for the Titbits. I'll have to keep digging a little bit more for those on their players, but I'm looking forward to it.
And that's why you tune into the broadcast to hear all the little tidbits and nuggets and stats that Robbie pulls out. In terms of what you're expecting from the Matildas, Robbie, so the way I look at it, and particularly with Katrina Gorry injury, is the way I've seen these last few games that they've played. It's very much been Gorry and Kyra Cooney-Cross dictate the midfield. They dictate the pace of play, how everything plays. But then when one of them's out, it reverts back to hoof it long and inshallah, essentially. There's no real cohesive structure to the way the side plays. I understand that, at the time of recording, we only found out this news this morning, but with Gorry being injured, what have you seen from the last, handful of times you've called the Matildas that could see perhaps a different game plan that isn't just hoof it long and hope for the best?
Well, I think that's a tough question because the Matildas are in a tough spot at the moment with Tommy Samani as caretaker coach. Still, this may be his last window. We assume this will be his last window. He's sort of said as much in his press conferences and the like. So in that respect, I think we could perhaps have hoped for a little bit more had he known that he would be in charge for 11 matches when he took over, instead of maybe 2 or 4, 6 at the outside, not 9 and with the She Believes Cup, and now 11 with Korea Republic. So in that respect, I think Tommy started out with his brief as get the team back on track, recovery from the Olympics, lift morale, and get everyone, as many people as available and wanting to play for the team as possible. We saw the big review of the stocks against Chinese Taipei, which was good. 2 good wins after the difficult games against Brazil. Then a revert more to form, if you like, for the She Believes Cup, which I think was understandable as well. But basically this holding pattern we're in, I think has also put the brakes on trying to instigate any sort of tactical development that we might see moving forward. I was in China when this squad was announced with the Socceroos, following the Socceroos. And I was actually with Joey Lynch, whose first reaction was, where is the testing going on? Where are all the A-League players? Why aren't we using 2 friendlies against Korea Republic? That's not Tommy Samani's brief either. Yes, I'm sure he talks to the players, or, the staff talk to the players and check with Ellie Carpenter. You're into the Champions League semi-finals now. You're playing a lot of football. Do you want to come back, more or less, without saying, do you want to play for your country? But you also have to take into account that, this is livelihood for these players. This is their image, and they love playing for their country as well. They get paid for it. This is the whole point. So they want to play for their country as well. And Tommy Samani has to be careful about not causing any problems in this group and this collective of players, which is more than the 23 or the 26 or the 32, that he is going to pass on to he or she or they that take over the squad as of hopefully Argentina at the end of May and June. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, which is my style, as you've noticed, I would say I would like more from KCC in terms of dictating the tempo. You say she sets the tempo of games. I'd like to see that more from her. She will play. She will be the key player, whether it's with Claire Wheeler alongside her. Alana Kennedy's been playing in midfield in the States at the moment. Winona Heatley has played in midfield under Tommy Samani twice already. but she is the midfielder in that the experienced senior, young but senior midfielder in there. And having said that, I think she also needs more support from the players around her to put her foot on the ball, to be able to play with the fullbacks, to be able to play with the wide players, the number 10 role that can get her to help her dictate the tempo and not just turn the ball over. It's ingrained in our mentality that we're a transition side, that we try and play fast, aggressive, and it doesn't help when we want to play. Maybe we just need to accept that we're not that side. In that case, you have to be better at not conceding the 1-0 G goal in the quarterfinals of the Asian Cup in transition. So, yeah, that's what I envisage. I don't see a tactical revolution coming against Korea Republic.
But it's interesting because we've had that discussion many times previously, particularly around the last window. But what Robbie said there around Joey Lynch's reaction, we had such a similar reaction last week here on the Dubcast, where it was like, where's the testing? Where's the new players coming in? This is sort of like do we really need, the Ellie Carpenters coming back? Do we really need the Hayley Razzos coming back, the Steph Catleys, just to sort of, give them a rest, because they've been playing forever. Like, they've basically been playing every 3 days for the last year, almost. And I don't know. I look at this and I like the idea of Leah Davidson coming in, even if it is not for the reason that we want. Izzy Gomez is someone who's been thrown around as sort of like why is she missed out? But she's also just coming back from injury herself. So, Burke, I guess, with Gorry being out, same question I asked Robbie, I'll ask you. What are you expecting here from the Matildas?
I think it's... I want to say that it's going to be more of the same, unfortunately, because that does look like what we're getting based off of the squad that we've seen selected. And considering Katrina Gorry is out, I do think we will get something happening different in the midfield, not because anyone wants to do that, but because they are going to have to do that. And I think, given what you're saying about the whole everyone's playing like every 3 days for the last year, I get worried that we're going to hit that point again that we did just before the World Cup, when all the players were like, you know what, we need to take a break and we are just not coming in. You guys are going to have to sort something out. And then we get smacked, like just absolutely belted. And it just sets off the general public, the people that are not fans of the women's game, but see a score and then think they can go and, drag women for existing without knowing the context. And I don't know if that's, I guess, one of the downsides of being located where we are geographically and having all of our players in Europe all the time, which isn't a bad thing. It's just something that I guess we need to contest, if that makes sense. We just kind of need to deal with that, because Australia isn't moving anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, I think we're at this point, especially considering caretaker coach still with Somani, which again, I have no complaints about. I think Tommy is great. I think we are just going to see a bit more of the same. It's like it sucks because you do want to see more out of the team, and I want to see more of these players that are sort of newer faces. I want to see more of Winnie Heatley. I want to see more of Tash Pryor. I want to see more of Leah Davidson. But I don't know if that's I don't think that's what we're going to get. As much as it's annoying, it does still lean itself to a sort of positive looking forward to the Asian Cup, because it does build the relationships between the players on the team, the ones that you are expecting to see at the Asian Cup. So, it's on a scale kind of thing. It's not an even weight, but there are still some slight silver linings. They're really thin, but they're there.
Yeah, Robbie, I mean, we saw, as Burke touched on, before the World Cup, I mean, that Matildas documentary on Disney Plus, basically Ellie Carpenter, to paraphrase what she said, I needed a time away, and the ACL was perfect for me because it forced me to be away from the fact that she'd been playing high-level football for nearly a decade at that point without any chance to rest. I guess just looking at this window, it is another AFC side, so someone we will probably have to get past at some point to make a deep run within the Asian Cup. How important is it to essentially not try anything new in this window, and that maybe what Samani is doing is right just because this is what we're going to have to do to win the Asian Cup?
Okay, well, if we're now on the road in, because this is that what you just said, Poletti, is a very, I think, Gustafsson mentality of heading into the World Cup, which was we are primed for this event. This is what we are heading for. Every opportunity, we are preparing for this month in Australia. But I think with the national team, I mean, the call for wholesale changes, I'm not, or testing or experimenting, giving players an opportunity, yes. Testing and experimenting with national team, I'm not a big fan. A jersey has to be earned at that level especially. And, I mean, Burke hit on it perfectly, I think, when she said Australia is here and the rest of the world is over there. But that is also where the highest concentration of quality is. And unfortunately, with the A-League as it is, and the fact that it expanded, which meant that we didn't get as many foreign players coming in to make up their years and all that sort of thing, I think has meant that the gulf in quality has opened. There are some players, and Alea Davidson is great, but there are other examples of players playing in the local league, whether it's with the Socceroos or the Matildas, who are showing that you can step across that breach and step up in class. But it's not that easy. It's not that easy to step up to international football amongst this group. And the other way to look at it is this is the most talented generation of female footballers we've ever had. They are playing now. We're saying, it's time for change. Alana Kennedy's she's 29 or 30. I mean, we're not, preparing for getting the wheelchairs to get them off the field. They're not 36, 37. These players are still in their prime and playing, their best football. So I think we also have to have a bit of respect for what they do and what they represent. And in terms of playing an Asian opponent, I hope, that there's more chance of us getting a really good result with a tried and tested team on the field with a couple of changes, and let's see a couple of new faces and try occasionally, which is what Andy Harper always says at the end of every disappointing result on the panel is, why have we changed 6 players? Let's just change 2. Give 2 players, bring them in, get them to play within a framework, blood them in. The problem is you're only playing 12 games a year. There aren't that many opportunities to do it. If you make all the changes in one, you end up with the June window of 3 or 4 years ago in Spain and Portugal, or, what was it, Canada, the Claire Sinclair farewell game, those sort of events, which no one wants. I see the PTSD there in your eyes.
Well, to be fair, I liked the second game, but I think that was because Quinn scored the game's only goal, and I very much love it when Quinn does anything because they're amazing. But yeah, so it is a completely understandable point. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Robbie, as I cut you off unintentionally?
All good. No, all good.
Fantastic. Well, that will do for our little Matildas chat. Just quickly, Robbie, while I've got you here, I was listening to A-League off air today, and you brought up some points around the financial status of certain clubs and how they're running on fumes, essentially. I guess how much of an impact do you think that actually is having on the domestic league in terms of just, the players that may or may not be available, whether clubs are actually able to spend money? I know the Newcastle Jets this morning for April Fool's Day touted that they'd signed Mario Balotelli and Emily Van Egmond for next season, which is a funny joke, but the reality
how did that go down?
I
I
think
was
For
not
both.
amused.
Okay.
I think some people saw it for what it was as a joke. Not me at 8 a.m. in the morning, in part because I had heard rumours that the Newcastle Jets were looking to sign Balotelli in the January window, and thought, oh, they've just waited a couple of extra months. But no, obviously, once it clicked what day it was, I very quickly worked it out. But I mean, do you think that financial status is hurting some of these teams' ability to grow and develop, Robbie?
Absolutely. 100%. I think it's almost impossible for the clubs to grow at the moment in this current. They are doing what they can. I don't think people fully understand, because we know Australian sports are always competitive and thriving and trying to achieve the best success they possibly can. The people are doing that in the men's and the women's game, and it is incredibly testing for them. I obviously have a closer lens on what's going on in the men's game. I shudder to think what it is like in the women's game, honestly. The demands that are being put on the coaches, on the assistant coaches, if there is auxiliary staff even at the women's game, and what capacity. Are they full-time? Which you have to be at this level. That's behind the scenes. On the pitch, it's impossible to bring in a high-profile player. The women's game we saw in the Central Coast Mariners' greatest little team ever, whatever that was called. Nice documentary about last year. But Richard Peel is within that of saying we've got to axe the women's team. It's just not working. And that would be disastrous, but that tells you where the priority is still at the moment and where the situation is. For the men, if you hear anyone say, and Vince Rugari, I'm looking at you, but I know you're doing it just out of a bit of fun. But Mario Balotelli, Suarez, Messi, anyone out of contract is not coming to Australia. They are not. They even out of contract, they still want $1 million, which is nothing for them. It's not going to happen. The clubs don't have it. They can't possibly gather it. Everyone is in debt. So, look, it's not about growing. It's about small wins. It's about baby steps, and I think we can be grateful for the fact that the teams are out there and that the players deserve huge kudos and respect, because they are also working in very difficult conditions, the men and the women, for putting on what is a very entertaining season again. And the women's season is being just as entertaining. There are some great stories being written. Melbourne City's run on the continent is outstanding. Same for the men's competition. The games are exciting. The matches are outrageously entertaining. Sure, there's not the quality there. We don't have big import players in the competition at the moment. There are a lot of kids. There are a lot of mistakes. But it's entertaining, and as we always like to say, it's ours. And that's, at the end of the day, it's our league. We're not going to get another league. If you want to support football, this is it. So get behind it. Don't boycott matches for stupid reasons. I had to swear once just because, yeah.
We wouldn't have it any other way with you, Robbie. I'll make sure that Lockie gets the editing tools out. No, thank you so much for coming on, Robbie. We greatly appreciate you giving up some time on your Tuesday evening.
An absolute pleasure. I'll speak to you again soon.
And we thank Robbie once again for joining us here on the Dubcast. Just a couple of quick things, but while we're still kind of semi on Matildas chat, 2-game series announced against Argentina for the May/June international window. They will play in Melbourne on the Friday night of that window. I believe it's May 31 off the top of my head, and then on the Monday, I should have had the date in front of me. On Monday, the 2nd of June, they'll play in Canberra. So So 2-match series against Argentina, and Burke, the Matildas, are coming back to Melbourne, which I'm sure you, friend of the pod, Marissa Ladanik, and all you other Victorians are excited about.
Oh, I'm so happy. I feel like I've been waiting years for this. I have. I have been waiting years for this. I'm so used to giving, and now I finally get to receive. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I hate Marvel Stadium. I really do. But I'm so happy. I'm so happy to go there. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
very excited.
and I'm sure it will be a lot more of a competitive game than the last time that the two of us were at Docklands for a Matildas game, which was the Uzbekistan
Yeah,
qualifier. That was 10-0 that night, I believe. I believe they got to 10.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
I want to say so. Yeah, hopefully a lot more of a competitive game. Um, But so that's Matilda's chat done. We've already gone over Victory and Adelaide. Burke, I think let's just go into Melbourne City, who had two games this weekend. One on Wednesday night against Brisbane Roar up at Perry Park. Taylor Rotto in the 9th minute, Holly McNamara in the 70th, Briley Henry in the 89th, and Mariana Speckmeyer in the 95th for a 4-0 win. Before they made a mad dash over to Porrua Park for a 1-0 victory against Wellington Phoenix. Holly McNamara in the 35th minute, because who else was going to score that goal, right? It was always going to be Holly Mac. It was written in the stars. Melbourne City had the 3 games in the space of a week, interstate travel and international travel to contend with. And came away with victory in all 3 games. I said it somewhat facetiously at the start, but are they ever going to lose again, Burke?
No. No. No, I don't think they will. I think the Brisbane game was interesting. I missed like part of the middle of the match because I was out. Um, but I didn't miss a single goal. So I got to see the first goal and I got to see all the other goals. They did that for me. They knew that I was busy in that period of time, so they were like, "We'll hold off for Burke so she can see." Um, yeah, and that was just textbook. It did feel like once Bradley Henry scored, it did kind of feel like Brisbane kind of keeled over and gave up there, which was a bit sad. RIP and peace to the Brisbane Roar. Um, and then the game against Wellington, which was, I think, the game that I thought they were most likely to lose because it was such a congested week and all of the travel, but they didn't. Holly McNamara, she is the one. I've heard Anna Harrington from AAP multiple times in different media boxes compare Holly McNamara to a younger Sam Kerr, which she is, yeah, pretty close to, even with the missing of penalties. Um, but she's not the only one that misses penalties, so we'll not pin that on her.
And then, I mean, look on the Wellington side of things, Burke. They're 4 points back of Canberra, who won on the weekend, 2-1 against Perth. They've got 2 games to go. Given how they've gone so far this season, can we sort of say that they're not doing it, and that really the only other side that's now outside the top 6 that can make it is Brisbane?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, I think Wellington are going to have a very interesting off season in many directions. But yeah, I don't think they're going to cut it this time, which makes me sad because I do love the little Wellington Phoenix. I do think they're a great side, but yeah, it just hasn't fallen their way this season.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with someone, and quite interestingly, Paul Temple is out of contract at the end of the
Yeah.
season.
Hmm.
A certain former Canadian coach's wife is the technical director at the club now.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I said this. I said this at the time that Bev Priestman was spotted at the stadium. I think she will be the next Wellington Phoenix coach. I
Yeah,
think
I
this is
think
all lining up for Bev Priestman to be the coach. I might have said this on the Dubcast, I might not have, but I know I definitely said it on social media, and I will put it on the record now that as of April 1, 8:11 p.m., this is not an April Fool's joke, I believe that Bev Priestman will be the next Wellington Phoenix coach, Burke.
That's exactly what I was alluding to, because I think we've been having the same conversations with people. I think, yeah, because her suspension from coaching finishes on the 1st of June, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that would be the least surprising thing on earth to ever happen. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
And that will be for further discussion in our season review episodes once the season is over and we look ahead to 2025-26 season. Already touched on a little bit. Perth 2, Canberra 1. Canberra outside of the 6, they're finally in. Someone not named Brisbane Roar is holding a final spot for the first time in a very long time. I mean, it sets up an interesting end to the season because Canberra now only need a point to seal themselves a finals spot. The Raw still need 3 points. You've got Perth, you've got Sydney, admittedly sitting behind Wellington, but both of those sides have shown in recent weeks that they can win, Burke. Are we looking at the top 6 that we have now? So City, Victory, Adelaide, Western United, Central Coast Mariners, and Canberra. Are we saying right now that that is going to be the 6 and no one else is getting in? Or do we think that a Brisbane, a Sydney, or a Perth could potentially sneak in with the right results playing out?
Look, anyone can sneak in as long as it's not Sydney. Anyone else, any of those teams, Western Sydney Wanderers even. I know mathematically I don't think they can, but if they could, I would still accept that. There will be no Sydney FCs in my final series. There will not. I will riot. I I can't take it. I'm sorry. No. I'm yeah, anyone can sneak in, no Sydney FCs. I won't have it.
So the one of the next games that will be taking place after the international break is Sydney versus Perth. Burke. Um, Look, it could be done and dusted that weekend. It might not be, but the loser is out. A draw and both sides are out. The winner keeps the faintest hopes alive, Burke. And I don't think there's any guessing that you want former MacArthur Rams coach Stephen Peters, now of the Perth Glory, to find a way to get past Sydney FC in that fixture.
Perth, Perth, I hope you have a plan for me. I hope you have a plan for me, and I hope you have a plan for Sydney FC. I need it. Please. Please put me out of my misery. Ugh. They're like a cockroach, this Sydney team. It just will not die.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question as it relates to Sydney FC, Burke.
Oh dear.
Who is more responsible for Sydney FC keeping their finals hopes alive? Is it Mackenzie Hawkesby or is it Jasmine Black?
Ooh. Ooh. That's tough. See, because you don't win games without a midfielder turned striker, but you don't win games either if you concede. Damn. I want to. I think I'm gonna have to go with Jasmine Black in goals. I think she's really somehow managed to stabilize Sydney FC. And yes, they wouldn't, yeah, get anywhere without Hawkesby, but yeah, I think the clean sheets have been really important that they've had.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna say Mackenzie Hawkesby just to be different, but also in part because she'd been doing it for a couple of weeks longer than what Jasmine Black had, and that's not Jasmine Black's fault. That's just the fact that Jasmine Black wasn't in the side to do it until a few weeks ago. Newcastle lost 2-0 to Western United at home. Western United sealed a final spot, Burke, after their up and down, topsy-turvy, inconsistent season. And the Mariners, I believe, 1 point away from sealing a final spot, in part just because Brisbane's goal difference is so massive. A real 6-pointer is the Mariners defeated Brisbane 2-1 in Gosford. I believe besides the Sydney Derby, that covers everything. Western Sydney Wanderers Western Sydney Wanderers went down 2-0 to Sydney FC. Burke, when are the Wanderers going to perform in the Sydney Derby, Burke? It's been well before COVID, I know that. Like, since they've picked up a win, it's like 11 or 12 outings that they just haven't performed against their crosstown rivals.
Yeah, if you follow me on the bad website were there when this game was on, I was somewhat live tweeting it, and oh my God, these people can't do anything. Oh, Western City Wanderers, I needed one thing. I needed one thing from you. And like they did show signs of life, which, if anything, made it worse. Because like I could see that there was possibility there. They just didn't take it. What is their problem? What is Sydney FC's problem? What's my problem? You will not get an answer to any of these questions, so don't hold on to them.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, I'm not even going to try to answer those questions either. I did have some sort of smart aleck remark that I was thinking about saying, but I actually do like being friends with you, Burke, and I do want to keep doing a podcast with you. So I don't think I should keep going on there. There is one A-League women's game this weekend amongst all of the international drama. The Western Sydney Wanderers and Melbourne Victory will face off at 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon at the Wanderers Football Park. That double-header rescheduled game because of the heat. But the Wanderers don't seem to want to move away from double-headers, Burke, because their round 23 game against Canberra, originally scheduled for Sunday the 20th of April, Easter Sunday, has been moved to Saturday the 19th of April and will now kick off at 4:50 p.m. at Western Sydney Stadium as part of a double header. My only thought here is that there has to be some sort of contractual obligation with the stadium for X amount of double headers, because otherwise, why would you move this game? Why?
Yeah, no, that makes no sense. It's going to be, I think that round 19 reschedule is going to be really interesting because it's in the middle of the international break. So, if anything, I think Western Sydney might actually be worse off simply because of the young Matilda call-ups. Because they're going to be missing Sylvester, which is not something you want if you're Western Sydney. So, it's going to be, I guess it's one good thing to come out of the A-Leagues, I guess, being sort of overlooked for Matilda's call-ups. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
It will be indeed. Obviously, so there's only 3 games of action this weekend. The two Matildas games, plus that A-League women's game. So if you have time to take in the local NPL action this weekend, I believe every state is back in action now in some degree or another with its NPL women's comps or its second tier competition, whatever that may be, in varying different states. So get out to some NPL. Check the Football Federation's websites, Football New South Wales, Football Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, whatever it is. Go support the NPL, and you never know, you might just see your next Matilda lining up in action, which is what I've had the chance to do a couple of times this season, Burke. Because I've called 2 NWS Spirit games, and lining up a defensive midfield for NWS Spirit wearing jersey number 4 is Shani Cooney Cross.
Oh dear. It's very interesting to see siblings come through. I've seen a lot of people online just kind of work out that Kyra has a younger sister, and they're like, this doesn't make any sense because nothing about Kyra gives off oldest child energy. So that's been a really fun thing to see online. But no, I think it's always interesting seeing siblings.
It is. It is. I'm going to admit I didn't realize until I started doing my prep for this season that there was a younger Cooney Cross running around. But everything I've seen so far this season has got me thoroughly impressed. And beyond just the name, actually very much reminds me of the way that Kyra plays when she's forced to sit further back. So I get out to the NPL. That's all I can say on that. But this will do. That will do for this episode of the Dubcast, part of the Roundball Australia podcast network. As always, thank you, Burke.
Thank you for having me once again.
And just a final thanks to Robbie Thomson for joining us. We'll be back next week on Wednesday. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.